Good day everyone, dear friends. We begin preparing our hearts for the lesson. We being Moscow 7 and Peter 3. We have prepared all week under the banner of incorporation, mutual incorporation. Until Thursday, we didn't even touch the lineup. We just incorporated together first. So we have great gratitude from both our tents for having been privileged with undergoing this preparation. For the preparation, and with that we'd like to start the preparation. We thought about how to raise the importance and greatness of our time and the states we go through. You see that our 10, Moscow 7, which for a long time was an example. Today see only 3 people in the lesson preparation, and yet we're asking for help from the whole world. Plea, in order to use correctly, to relate correctly to everything that happens to us, so that we can not complain to the Creator, but to be grateful to the Creator, so that we can feel that we're getting even more connected and that no one is lost. No part in the 10, no part in the world. Plebe is lost. Everyone is simply getting closer together and with one heart to turn to the Creator to thank Him, and that we'll have faith that we are one man in one heart. Let's include within us all the friends, and then the friends will also become revealed externally as well. Then we'll see our 10, that it consists of actual 10 friends and not just, and that's a request. Thank you for hearing us. Excerpt number 1 from Rabbash Mighty, Rock of my salvation. We thank you and praise you for the good we have received from you. It is as our sages said, quote, one should always praise the Creator and then pray, end quote. The reason is that one who believes that the Creator is merciful and gracious and that He desires to do good to the creations has room for prayer. This is why we must first establish the praise of the Creator, meaning that a person himself should establish the praise of the Creator. This does not mean that the Creator should see that the person is praising Him, since the Creator does not need people. Rather, the person himself should see the praise of the Creator, and then he can ask Him to help him, since the Creator's conduct is to do good to His creations. Active workshop. What do we thank the Creator for? Where do we start? We thank the Creator for being here together in the group, a group of co-lists. Group of that He brought us here, and that we're part of this big thing that continues in the path of all the previous co-lists, and that together we can reveal the purpose of creation. The Creator gave us such a place and such an opportunity and such great friends that only together with this great world we can reach the goal. Yes, we're grateful for having such true friends as these friends in Moscow 7, who are truly an example in their seeming descents. They are also an example for how to turn, to how to ask for help, how to use the only means that's available to a person, that being the society. That's what they do. Thankful to the Creator for waking up in the morning with a desire for spirituality. We all worked in the 10 to reveal the deficiency for spirituality and hasten the time. And we're in the morning today with whole world with one single desire to reveal the importance of the goal. We need to make a big vessel to receive the Creator's head and make Him glad. We're always working on that. We learn how to love the Creator through the love of friends, and we will have a big vessel, but we can ask for everyone, for the whole society. And I suppose that all the efforts we make needs to lead us to that goal, to the extent that one appreciates. So, one is allotted, that is according to the size of the hole in the Kli, meaning the receptacle and its insides that lack will always be filled, not less and not more. Therefore a servant of the Creator who is not sorry for the public, but feels only his own personal lack, his receptacle for abundance is also not greater. As a result, he will not be able to receive the collective revelation of godliness in the form of the comfort of the public, since he did not prepare a plea to receive this collective discernment, but only his individual discernment. Conversely, one who is sorry for the public and feels the troubles of the public as his own trouble is rewarded with seeing the complete revelation of the Shiner. Hello friends. First of all, our friends working right now here in the building. Let's include them with us in the lesson. Today we will watch a recorded lesson from the 9th of October 2002, based on the article Who Testifies to a Person. This is the writings of Fabash. We will read the article together in the 10. We have 42 minutes for that. Who testifies to a person. It is written in the Zoharim. Quote, it is a commandment to testify in court so that his friend will not lose money because he is not testifying. This is why the authors of the Misnar said, who testifies to a person, the walls of his house. What is the meaning of the walls of his house? These are the walls of his heart, as it is written. Then he turned his face to the wall. The authors of the Misnar asserted that it teaches that prayed from the walls of his heart. Moreover, his household testifies to him. His household are his 248 organs, since the body's called house. This is what the Misnar asserted. A wicked one, his iniquities are engraved in his bones. Likewise, a righteous one, his merits are engraved in his bones. This is why David said, all my bones shall say, but why are the iniquities engraved in the bones more than in the flesh, tendons, and skin? This is because the bones are white, and a black writing, and the black writing is visible only from within white. It is like the Torah, which is white from within, meaning the parchment, and black from without, meaning the ink. Black and white are darkness and light, and, moreover, the body is destined to rise on its bones. Hence the sins and merits are engraved on its bones. If he's rewarded, the body will rise on its bones, and if he's not rewarded, it will not rise, and will not have the revival of the dead. End quote. Thus far its words. We should understand why the Zoh interprets that a person should testify before a court so that his friend will not lose money. This is interpreted in the work of the Creator. Thus, we should understand what it is that one is demanding, and from whom he is demanding it, and to make it reliable, a person must testify. In the work of the Creator, a person demands of the Creator to give him what he wants of the Creator, thus to show that his argument is true. Doesn't the Creator know whether or not a person is telling the truth? However, if the man testifies, then he knows that his argument is true. Moreover, how can one be trusted to testify for himself? And we should also understand why the testimony must be from the walls of his heart, since he brings evidence to the meaning of walls of his house from his in the words, quote, then he turned his face to the wall, end quote, which we interpret to mean the walls of his heart. Thus a person's testimony should also be from the walls of his heart. However, it is known that testimony must come from his mouth, as our sages said, quote, from their mouths and not from their writings, end quote. And here he says that it should be from the walls of his heart and not from the mouth. We should also understand why it says, quote, this is what the authors of the Misnar asserted, a wicked one, his iniquities are engraved in his bones, and likewise a righteous one, his merits are engraved in his bones, end quote. But are sins and merits engraved in corporeal bones? How is a spiritual matter, which is sins and commandments, engraved in bones? And it is even more difficult to understand his answer. Quote, this is because the boats are white and a black writing is visible only from within the white. End quote. Also, we should understand why he says, and moreover, the body is destined to rise on its bones. End quote. Why particularly on its bones? Which means that whether or not he is revived depends on his bones. To understand the above in the work, we must remember the known rule that there is no light without a vessel, meaning that it is impossible to receive any fulfillment if there is no hole or deficiency there where the filling can enter. For example, a person cannot eat a meal if he is not hungry. Moreover, the amount of pleasure that a person can derive from the meal is measured by the amount of desire he has for the meal. It follows that where one does not feel any lack, he will not experience any pleasure, which he will be able to receive, since there is no room to receive any feeling. Thus, when we speak of the order of the work, when a person begins to enter the work, meaning when he wishes to do the work of holiness with the aim to bestow contentment upon his Maker, according to the above-mentioned rule, he must have a need for it to feel that he needs to bestow upon the Creator, And we can say that he has a vessel too. The extent of his need to give to the Creator, and the filling for that vessel is while he gives to the Creator, meaning when he wishes to bring the Creator contentment. This means that the body already agrees to bestow upon the Creator, and since man is born with a nature for reception and not for bestow, if one wishes to engage in bestow, the body will certainly resist it. And if a person wants to engage in bestow, meaning that he has a desire to obtain such a vessel, and a vessel means it is a desire and deficiency, then the body immediately comes and asks, why do you want to change the nature you were created in? What is the deficiency that you feel that you're lacking? Are you 100% sure that you understand that you need to work in order to bestow? Look at how the majority do the work of holiness. They are not meticulous about what they do. In other words, in their engagement in Torah and commandments, they see primarily that the act will be proper with all its precisions and details, but not the intention. They say, we certainly do what we can, and they pay no mind to their intent. Because they say that the work is for her sake belongs to a chosen few and not to everyone, it follows that the body which comes and asks its questions is probably asking to the point, and since it is not given a sufficient answer, it does not allow a person to think thoughts of the desire to bestow. Since it is right, there is no light without a vessel. In other words, if you don't feel the need to engage in bestow, why are you making a fuss? So first it tells him, give me this need, the desire to bestow, and then we will talk. But according to the above said, the need for the desire must be present, meaning that he should suffer it not being able to bestow. Thus, since he is no vessel, he certainly cannot be granted the light, meaning the filling. Therefore, a person should try to have a great deficiency, because he is unable to bestow upon the Creator, and it is known that a deficiency is determined by the sensation of suffering that he feels because of the deficiency. Otherwise, although he does not have what he's asking for, it is still not considered a deficiency, because a real lack is measured by the pain that he feels at not having. Otherwise, it is nothing but empty words. Now we can understand what our sages said, to love the Lord your God, and to serve him with all your heart. What is the work of the heart? It is a prayer. We should understand why they extended the prayer beyond the literal meaning. Usually, when one wants it to another person to give him something, he asks him to verbally, as it is written, for you hear the prayer of every mouth. So why do they say that a prayer is called the work of the heart? We said above that a prayer is called a deficiency, and he wants his deficiency to be filled, and yet no deficiency is sensed in a person's mouth. Rather, all of man's sensations are sensed in the heart. This is why if a person doesn't feel a lack in his heart, what he utters in his mouth does not count at all. So we could say that he truly needs what he's asking for with his mouth. This is so because the filling he's asking for should enter a place of deficiency, which is the heart. This is why our sages said that a prayer should be from the bottom of the heart, meaning that the whole heart will sense the lack for which he is asking. It is known that light and clear are called deficiency and filling. We ascribe the light which is the filling to the Creator, and the clear which is the lack to the creatures. Thus a person should prepare the clear so the Creator will pour the abundance there, or there will be no room for the abundance. For this reason, when a person asks the Creator to help him so he can aim his actions to bestow, the body comes and asks him, why are you praying this prayer? What are you missing about it? For this reason, we must study and scrutinize the books that discuss the necessity of the work of bestow, until we understand and feel that if we don't have this kli, we will not be able to enter the kasher. We should not look at the majority who say that the most important thing is the act, and here is where all the energy should go, and that the acts of and establishing of the Torah that we do are enough for this for us. Instead, he must perform every act of Torah and mitzvot in order to bring himself into the aim to bestow. Afterwards, when he has a complete understanding of how much he needs to engage in order to bestow, and he feels pain and suffering at not having this force, then it is considered that he already has something for which to pray for work in the heart. since the heart feels what it needs. For such a prayer comes the answer to the prayer. This means that he is given the strength from above. This so he will be able to aim in order to bestow. For then he already has the light and key. However, what can one do if after all the efforts he has made, he still does not feel the lack of being able to bestow his pain and suffering? The solution is to ask the Creator to give him the key called a lack from not feeling, and that he is unconscious without any pain from being unable to bestow. It follows that if he can regret and ache over not having the deficiency, for not feeling how remote he is from Kasher, that he is utterly mundane and does not understand that the life he is living, wanting to satisfy the corporeal needs, is no more important than that of any other animal that he sees, and that if he paid attention to see how similar he is to them with all their aspirations, and that the only difference is man's cunningness and his ability to exploit others, while animals are not clever enough to exploit others. Sometimes, even though he sees that he is studying Torah and keeping the commandments, he cannot remember while keeping the commandments, or while studying the Torah, that he should obtain connection with the Creator by engaging in Torah and commandments. It is as though they are separate things. For him, the Torah and the commandments are one thing and the Creator is another, and if he regrets not having any sensation of deficiency, that he is like an animal. This is called work in the heart as well. It is called a prayer. This means that for this deficiency he already has a place in which to receive fulfillment from the Creator to give him the sense of deficiency, which is the vessel that the Creator fills with a feeling. Now we can understand the question, why is a prayer in the heart and not in the mouth? It is because a prayer is called a deficiency, and it cannot be said that he has a deficiency in the mouth. Rather, the deficiency is a sensation in the heart. Now we should explain why we asked about his saying that the merits and the sins are engraved on the bones, and he can revive from the bones or not be revived. Rather, the Soho compares the bones which are white to the Torah, which is black over white, where the black is darkness and the white is light. We should explain the meaning of bones being white. This is why both the merits and the sins are written on them. Since concerning the work of the Creator, it should be interpreted that a person who engages in Torah and commandments is called a bone. The primary part of the Torah and commandments is considered white, since something in which there are no deficiencies is called white, and since there is nothing to add to the actions that a person does, for it is said about it, quote, "You shall neither add nor subtract," end quote. His engagement in the Torah is called bones. They are white because the merits and sins of a person are engraved in them. However, if a person criticizes his actions, the reason why he is building his foundation, the reason that compels him to engage in Torah and commandments, his aim while doing the deeds, and he tries to see if he's truly doing those deeds for the Creator to bestow contentment upon his Maker, then he can see the truth. He is inside the nature he was born in, called receiving in order to be to receive, and he doesn't want to engage in Torah and commandments without any reward. And the real reason why one cannot exit his nature is that he doesn't see the need for it, so he would have to change the nature that was imprinted in him, which is called self-love, and assume the love of others in order to achieve the love of the Creator. This is so because a person feels that he's deficient of the love of his surroundings, meaning that his family will love him and his townspeople, etc. But what will he gain from loving the Creator also? What will he gain if he loves his friends? After all, he is always considering the profits related to self-love. Thus, how can he exit this love? And if he asks himself why he's keeping the Torah and commandments in action, and he's even meticulous about all its precisions and details, then he answers to himself that he received faith through education. Through education, you begin to guide a person to engage in Torah and commandments lishmer, not for her sake. As the Raman says, it follows that he has taken it upon himself to believe in the Creator, that he will serve in the holy work, and in return he will be rewarded in this world and in the next world. This is why a person is told that the real work is to believe in the Creator, who gave us to keep and by that we will achieve equivalence of form called with the Creator. This means that one should exit self-love and assume love of others, and to the extent that he exits self-love, he can be rewarded with complete faith. Otherwise he is separated, as written in the commentary. It is a law that the creature cannot receive apparent harm from him, for it is a flaw in his glory that the creature should perceive him as doing harm, for it is inappropriate for the perfect operator. Hence, when one feels bad to the extent that there is denial of his guidance upon him, and the operator is hidden from him, this is the biggest punishment in the world. If a person introspects and he recognizes the truth that the Torah and should be for the Creator, he feels how remote he is from the truth, and the scrutiny brings him into pain and suffering at constantly marching on the wrong road from being called a servant of the Creator. Rather, all his work is for his own sake, which is called working for himself, which is the way of all the animals, but is inappropriate for the speaking. It follows that through those sufferings, he receives a clear meaning, a deficiency, and since he sees that he is incapable of exiting self-love by himself, for he doesn't have the strength to go against nature, the solution is to ask the Creator to help him. As our sages said, he who comes to pure to be purified is aided. It follows that then he has room for filling the deficiency, since there is no light without a clean. This brings up the question that we asked earlier. What can one do if, even though he understands that it is worthwhile to work in order to bestow, he still doesn't have the pain and suffering at not being able to aim in order to bestow? In that case, he should know that this does not mean that he has complete faith in the Creator, only that he cannot aim in order to bestow. He should know that he is lacking whole faith, since when he has whole faith in the Creator, there's a natural law that the small annuls itself before the big. Thus, if he truly had whole faith in the greatness of the Creator, he would be annulled before the Creator naturally, and he would wish to serve him without any reward. It follows that there is no deficiency here, for he cannot prevail over nature. Rather, there is lack of whole faith here. Although he has faith, the evidence for that is that he is keeping. However, it is not whole faith as it should be. In other words, the entire wholeness is that they believe in his greatness. And if one wishes to know if he has whole faith, he can see how much he is willing to work in order to bestow, and how much the body is annulled before the Creator. Thus, a person's inability to work in order to bestow is the deficiency. But there's a greater deficiency here, that he lacks whole faith, and this is the main one. But what can one do if, even though he sees that he lacks whole faith, that deficiency still does not beget in him pain and suffering at his being deficient? The real reason is that he's looking at the majority and sees that they are important people of influence and status, and it isn't apparent that they lack whole faith when speaking to them. They say that this is only for a chosen few, which is their well-known view. This is the great partition which becomes a barrier for a person arresting his progress on the right path. This is the reason why we need an environment, meaning a group of people who are all of the view that they must achieve whole faith. This is the only thing that can save a person from the views of the collective. At that time, everyone strengthens everyone else to crave to achieve whole faith, that he can bestow contentment upon the Creator, and that this will be his only aspiration. However, this does not conclude the solution for achieving a deficiency for whole faith. Rather, one must exert in actions more than one is accustomed in, both quantity and quality, and the body will certainly resist that, and ask how is today different from other days, and he will reply, I am picturing myself as a servant of the Creator, how I would serve the Creator if I had whole faith. This is why I want to serve him at the same pace as though I were already rewarded with whole faith. This creates in him a deficiency and pain at not having whole faith, since the resistance of the body causes him to have a need for whole faith. But this is certainly said specifically where he goes against the body through coercion. When he works with the body not according to his will, it follows that those two actions, his working more than he's accustomed to, and the resistance of the body caused him to need whole faith. Only then is a vessel formed in him so that afterwards the light will clothe within it, since now he has room for prayer in his heart, meaning a place of deficiency. And then the Creator who hears a prayer gives him the lights of faith by which he can serve the King not in order to be rewarded. And now we can understand what we asked about the meaning of the merits and sins being engraved in corporeal bones. Bones refer to the heart of the matter. The bone of the matter is an idiom in Hebrew, referring to the Torah and commandments that he is keeping. We were given it to keep in action, and there's nothing to add to it as it is. Written quote, you shall neither add nor subtract, end quote. And on these actions, the sins and merits are engraved, meaning that if he wishes to walk on the path of truth and criticize his actions, whether they are with the intent to bestow or not, and he is a man who loves the truth and is not interested in what others do, but wants to know if he is engaging in Torah and commandments lishmer for her sake or if it is all for himself, then he sees that he is immersed in self-love and cannot come out of it by himself. Then he cries for the Creator to help him out of self-love and be rewarded with the love of others and the love of the Creator, and quote, the Lord is near to all who call upon him and to all who call upon him in truth, end quote. This is why he is rewarded with adhesion with the Creator. It follows that then the merits are engraved in his bones, meaning that the Torah and commandments that he kept are called white, since in terms of the actions everything is white, positive, and there is nothing to add to them. But afterwards he scrutinized and saw that the aim was not in order, and that there was darkness on them, because he was separated and didn't have adhesion, called equivalence of form, such that he will do everything with the aim to bestow. Instead he is ruled by self-love. Thus he has darkness placed over the white, which are the white bones, as written in the words of the Zoe. This means that he sees that there is darkness on the Torah and commandments that he performed, that he is separated from the light, since the light wants to bestow while he does everything in order to receive and cannot do anything except what concerns self-love. It follows that his bones, meaning the practical Torah and commandments, are white, which means that there is no deficiency in the act that requires any additions. But through the criticism that he places on this white, he sees that there is darkness there, and if he pays attention to mending it, because it causes him pain and suffering, that he is in the dark, and he prays for the Creator to help him and deliver him from self-love. By that he is later rewarded with adhering to the Creator. This is called a righteous one. His merits are engraved in his bones, meaning that his criticism of his white bones caused him to be rewarded with revival of the dead, since the wicked in their lives are called dead, for they are separated from the life of lives. Thus when they are rewarded with clinging to the Creator, it is considered that they have been rewarded with the revival of the dead. But a wicked one, his iniquities are engraved in his bones, since a wicked one is one who is still immersed in self-love, and a righteous one is called good, and good is called bestow. As it is written, my heart overflows with a good thing. I say my work is for the King. In other words, what is a good thing? It is when one can say my work is for the King, meaning that all his actions are for the Creator and not for his own sake. This is why he who has a good eye will be blessed. For this reason, those people who have practical, which is considered the core, that the Torah mitzvot were given by the Creator to keep them. This is called white, since the actions have no deficiencies. As it is written, you shall neither add nor subtract. This is why his bones are white. His iniquities are engraved in his bones, which are white, because he did not criticize his actions, whether or not they are in order to bestow. Instead, he trusted the majority in how they keep. And they say that working for the Creator is work that belongs to a chosen few, and not everyone must take this path of being concerned with his work, being with the aim to bestow. This is called the view of the landlords. But the view of Torah is different. It is known that the view of landlords is opposite from the view of Torah, since the view of landlords is that by a person engaging in Torah, his possessions grow and expand, since he becomes an owner of a bigger house. In other words, everything he does goes into self-love. But the view of Torah is as our sages said about the verse when a man dies in a tent. They said the Torah exists only in one who puts himself to death over it. This means that he puts himself to death, meaning it is the self-love that he puts to death. Thus he has no possessions, as there is no landlord to whom we can relate possessions, since his only aim is to bestow, not to receive. Thus he annuls his self. It follows that a wicked one, his iniquities are engraved in his bones, means that he did not walk in the path of Torah, since the Torah is called black over white. The Zohar says that this is why his merits are engraved in his bones. Since the bones are white and a black, writing is visible only from within. White like the Torah, meaning if there is white, which means that he keeps, it can be said that he is like the Torah, that he has black over the white. Then he is trying to achieve, or remains, with the white bones and doesn't write anything on them. This is why he is called wicked. For his iniquities are engraved in his bones, but those who have no white in them, who have no practical, do not belong to the discernment of wicked. Rather, they belong to the discernment of animals, meaning they are only beasts. He continues here. He says, accordingly we find that there is no lack here, because one doesn't have the power to overcome nature, but rather there is a lack of complete faith, even though he does have faith, and to testify to that he keeps the divine commandments, but it's not whole faith as it should be, meaning that the wholeness is in believing in the Creator's greatness. And if a person wants to know if he has complete faith or not, then he can see how ready he is to work in order to bestow, and the extent to which the body annuls before the Creator, meaning that one cannot work in order to bestow. That is the lack. But there is a greater lack here, meaning that he lacks complete faith. And complete faith is that quality the Creator gives a person. The intention, as Rob said yesterday, that Max Green is the intention to bestow. And we have to reach a point where we live our whole life with this aim, this intention to bestow. And he describes it in the article that the person always tries to aim for it, but he always falls into self-love. That's what he should pray for. We will now continue to the lesson from the 9th of October 2002. We read the article, The Who Testifies to a Person. What does Rabash say? After a person receives what we call grace of holiness from above, that by the study, by investing in all kinds of efforts and all that your ability allows you to do, you shall do as written. After all that, he begins to realize that truly the actions of bestow are likely the best and most exalted, except he can't do them, and what's missing in order to perform them is the feeling of the greatness of the Creator, which is called faith, which brings to man's heart the power to cope, to rise above the desires, on top of the intentions in order to receive, and finally acquire the intention in order to bestow. The feeling of the Creator is what transforms the person from thinking about himself to thinking about the Creator. And would you take this faith? So he says that here only the environment can help, and according to what we learned, and it's written in the rest of the places, this is the only thing that actually depends on the person, and if he engages in that, he receives strength, power, faith through his work in society. He then merits the intention in order to bestow, and that means that he crosses the barrier. And in each and every stage that he goes through, we have to tell the difference in each and every state between lights and vessels, meaning that if he needs to be in a certain state, in that state there's both a deficiency and a filling, and if he wants to reach the next state, then in that state there's both a lack and a filling, and we don't need to worry about the filling, but about the lack, and that's our whole work to take care of the vessel. The vessel determines what is the person's state. He says here that the iniquities are engraved in the bones more than the flesh, tendons and skin. What does it mean? Bones refers to the bone of the matter. He doesn't interpret now where bones, tendons and flesh and skin. These 5 aspects of the in every we have, whether we like it or not, it's part of. These are levels that are at the same degree of coarseness from inside out. There's this from above downwards, and then there's aspects of from inside out in width or thickness. And so to not be confused These aspects are called by the names, the marrow, bones, tendons, flesh and skin. And same with the height of the cot. It has to be in the width of the cot as well. These 5 aspects they have to be there, and there can't be less than 5. Otherwise there's no deficiency in the mood, and then there's no vessel. Only we use these names to emphasize that there's 5 aspects or tense. 10 and not 11 and not 9, that can be more or less. And in these names, we use them to indicate what level a person is in, that we take some as an example, and relating to it we measure the rest of the potom adjacent to it. So we say, for instance, he only has biner and zon, and he doesn't have keter, and or the other way around, he has ketma, but he doesn't have biner and zone. And here too there's a confusion between whether it's by the name of the lights or by the name of vessels, because we can always call the lights by the name of the vessels and vice versa. So in short, we have to always go deep into the matter itself and understand what it's about, and not the words, which of course can change each time. You can change one word for another word, and so on. So what he mentions here about bones, he's not referring to bones in the sense of marrow, bones, tendons, flesh and skin, which is where the bones is something inner to the marrow. We don't even reach there. That's so bones become the innermost thing. But he says that if a person wants to reach a deficiency, that deficiency has to truly reach the foundation, the core of the, which means the bones. Is there a specific lack that we should always be asking about, always have it with us? Always think about what is the lack after all the thinking that a person does. Turns out that the only deficiency you need to care about having is a deficiency for the greatness of the Creator. That only, recognizing the greatness of the Creator, the feeling of the Creator, knowing the Creator in general, with greatness, without grack, doesn't matter how you call it, but in short, an impression of the Creator can change me, so that instead of being a servant of my will to receive, I'll be a servant to his will to bestow. That's it. And here man has to work precisely on this deficiency, that the light will come from above, in other words, and change me, that the Creator will be revealed in such a way that I'll be transformed. So there has to be a recognition that I want to change to the extent that I'm capable of wanting that, and for that I turn to the Creator to change me. Why do I have to turn to the Creator? Is it not sufficient to have the desire to change and then he'll do it? Because my change isn't the goal. Rather, asking for it is how I cling to him, and that's the goal. The change itself is also essentially the means, so you'll never get the solution. You'll always be lacking. He won't give you. It turns out that each time we work on one deficiency, same deficiency, how to be more adhered, how to be closer, because that also brings me the power to be more adhered. A deficiency for adhesion. In short, everything comes from the same source. He writes that we need to emerge from self-love and to take upon himself the love of others. So first of all, the question, if he emerges from himself, then how do you receive the love of others? If there's no self, he can't receive the love of others. You can't acquire love of others without exiting oneself. The desire is one desire. Who exists in this desire? Me or outside of me? Outside of me is actually the Creator. But to not delude myself, to not lie to myself as if I want the Creator. So instead of the Creator, I have to think about the environment, the friends, and if I can relate to them with love. It's a sign that this is how I relate to the Creator. Because what's outside the person's body, it doesn't matter if it's the Creator or the friends. Anything foreign that I have no direct benefit from, that to me just doesn't exist. Doesn't exist meaning I don't think about it. When do I start caring about someone? When I see that I depend on him, and in some incident, some state, some connection. If I don't depend on him, I don't feel any concern. Are you concerned? Concerned about life in Australia? What's going to happen there? Who's going to be the Prime Minister there or something? I don't know. You barely get reminded of that, say once a year. Why? Because you don't depend on that. But if you say we depend on water, we have some water issues here in Israel. And if we could receive water only from Australia, then you would see what would happen on the news, and what would people think about and talk about only Australia. Is everything okay with Australia? How should we get along with Australia? So, what doesn't belong to me doesn't exist in my field of view. And the same with the friends for now. They don't exist in my field of view. This is a sign true. Sign 100% that the Creator is at the same state for me. If I depict the Creator correctly, I can think about Him as good that does, good that gives to me, and does for me, and this and that. That's true. That's Him towards me. But how am I towards Him? That I can check only according to how I relate to the friends. That's the true test. What Dawson say? He says the following, that a person who's somewhat great cares about the group. He's greater, he cares about society. If he greater, he cares about the country. If he's greater, he cares about the entire world. Accordingly, you can see how much do you care about the Creator, because it's Him. What's outside of you? Simple. The test is very straightforward. There's nowhere to run. Love exiting self-love means to care about the environment. You can't come out of self-love. Just like that. If you come out of self-love, it means you have to enter love of others. There's nothing in between. Can't be. There's only two authorities. The rulership of the created being or the rulership of the Creator. Either the will to receive or the will to bestow. So choose. If a person ultimately decides that he has to come out to bestow as a result of that, there has to be a decision that says I have to engage with society, with the friends, because that's the lever, let's say, the only instrument, the only means by which I reach connection with the Creator. What's connection equivalence of form? Meaning if you haven't yet reached the urgency to connect with the society, you have no true pressure to connect with the Creator. It's literally the same. Accordingly, you can see how far you are from spirituality, how much you have no point of contact, no approach to it, no tendency to it. The society meaning the people who are like-minded like you, not better, not worse. Just like you in your environment, they also want it, and as if they want it you see that you don't want it, but they perhaps don't want it yet either. But they have some direction still. The Creator gave them the same thoughts and desires. We, in the dissemination enterprise, we need to work in creating material, product, and the product includes the dissemination of it and then anything else. Even if we were making coffee somewhere or making books somewhere, it doesn't matter. That's stuff we have to do. In that execution, there's also relationships between people. Why am I doing this? Why am I in this dissemination enterprise? What does this give me? What is the benefit I'm looking for? I'm working for 8 hours a day in some other factory and I receive, let's say, 5,000 shekels. Now, when I work here, the dissemination organization, then what is the reward I demand and what do I invest? And the truth is what we invest is not someone's work online or someone producing a book. The main investment is in the social relationships in the factory. That's where the main effort is. Start doing that, you'll succeed. And if you don't, as written, this will be your burial place. That's it. We've reached a point where you need others. Oh, you want to ask. Okay, let's say that people chose me as a maintenance person and I take with me a few other people who have good hands. I don't need that much of their mind, but they need to have good hands. So I chose, say, 5 people, 10 people. They agree with me to be with me together, and we are now the maintenance department. It doesn't matter what people, perhaps, said that I want to be connected to. Those who engage in the internet or some other department. Maybe there's more little people there better who understand better or study more or have a certain kind of character. But it doesn't matter. The truth is it doesn't matter at all. Meaning if you chose your department based on just the hands they have, right, you would never want to connect with otherwise. But he's a painter and you need a painter, so you take him. What can you do? You took him just according to this principle. Now start doing actions there, as in a department in a work department, so that everything ticks like a clock, like in any normal working department in any other business. And when there is already connections and an understanding and some general plan that we know what to do and no one can run away from it. If someone escaped, so fine, you're fired from the factory in general, and some people are incompatible. But if a person completely refuses, then he has nothing to do here. You just go out to some more external group and that's it. After you have an real team, after that, we start caring about the inner life in that group, in that department, and that's already inner work. How is it possible to find the sentence, the judge, the work with the friends, and the work otherwise? In the work there are no friends, and in the group there are friends, right? Everyone are friends. Yes, I don't understand. I do not understand what the difficulty here is. If you're honest with yourself and with the friends, if you're direct, you won't feel any difficulty. Take your clothes off and his, and you're all naked, and there's nothing to be done here except to engage and succeed in the main goal, the objective. So what is the problem here? Work relationships and social relationships. What's the problem? I can shout about work matters, right? Ask Benny a few times a day. And this is related to how I treat him as a student, or what? Or Malik, or a view, or someone. Whoever does more, whoever is more active, gets more reproach, more shouts. Yes, it's clear. So what is the connection? When we work together, then, of course, there are more opportunities for friction at work, but above that we build our connections more. Right, what about it? You don't see. I now saw that the internet cafe, not internet, Kabbalah coffee right singer was shouting at every morning gently, but you know, a little shout, a little bit like, we don't understand that the revelation of the lax is the very best thing, that's it. There's nothing else to go for. If there is no lack, you should know that you don't know how to take any step forward, and corrections. If the lack is not revealed, if the wound is not revealed, if you don't discover that you're evil, then how can you do good? Because we do not create, we do not generate in our world from ourselves, anything new. Yes, we only correct. Our whole work is called in general correction. We correct. So first of all, we need to reveal the evil, and then correct it, reveal the evil, and correct it. And if it's not revealed, then there's nothing to do. To the extent that it is revealed, only to that extent, you can correct it, and then advance. So, the more evil there is, God bless. So I don't mind the shouting, you understand? So long as they're not shouting against the general direction of our advancement. Yes, but on the way, shouting and conducting criticism, that is a blessed thing, and it can never be destructive. If it's really good criticism, in depth, from various sides. These are scrutinies. From that we begin to scrutinize and see who's right, who isn't, why, and how to do things. If it relates to the goal, only a blessing will come from it. There's nothing to be afraid of. To the contrary, dig into it. Don't always be in it, don't start enjoying the suffering. There is such a thing, but it's very good. We don't know, but this is known in medicine also, and in psychology. Pain and joy are the same thing, meaning suffering and joy. They're felt in the body or in the same way, and you can't have one without the other either. Look, it's not for nothing that it is said that if you don't have any conflict with a wife, then the love between you does not renew, right? It's not for nothing. It's true. It needs to be upon something which is the opposite. If there wasn't this criticism about that coffee, then they would also have continued in the same way. You understand? Now they see that they truly need to take care of it and do it more professionally, and to stop with all the, where it's, yes, we're now going with him to America, right? He has a month and a half. Every day I shout at him. I want the exact order of the lecture, how to appear. What do you think? I sent this to many people to ask about what to wear, how to perform, and everything. I scrutinized everything, and I can stand here, I can stand here. Tell me to speak for 2 hours, and I'll speak. I start a sentence, and I look for how to finish it, right? No problem. This comes out. But with that, there has to be preparation, and there was not sufficient there. Wasn't sufficient preparation there. So, the deficiency was revealed. Good, nice. I wish I am told after what I do to tell me all the flaws, but you protect me. You don't speak, and that's not for the best. It's not beneficial. I can't improve. There is no examination, no criticism. Yes, another question about the prayer. Prayer for a deficiency, prayer for a vessel. Prayer for bringing the light in the vessel. Prayer is supposedly, a prayer is called a deficiency that is already in a person, in a scrutinized manner. A deficiency that is ready to receive its filling, its answer. Yes, now to reach that deficiency, that is the labor, that's the exertion, the deficiency. Itself the prayer that's already prayer. That's already okay. The whole thing is the work before it. I'm asking about the prayer itself. What is the prayer? My deepest intention or prayer? Or something I'm searching for? You don't know what you're looking for. Forgive me, but I'll tell you. You have. We call it a spiritual gene. There's a chain of records, and this entire chain is in you because your soul from above, which descended to the current state, this low corrupted one, then all those stages, all those degrees, it descended through all those degrees are within it, only in the manner of records, in the form of records like meaning, information about each and every degree. Now you can acquire that degree with this information if you add forces to it to conquer it. The force to conquer that degree is called a screen, a mask, the intention in order to bestow. Our work altogether is through all kinds of actions to discover the next upcoming record. I implemented it. I realized it. That's it. I continue and I discover the next one in line. The higher one, the higher one, the higher one. And that's how I return to that place from which my soul has descended from, meaning I can't search what desire will I have so that I will discover the next record. How will I appear as I discover the next records? My thoughts, my desire, all kinds of who will I be, what will I be like that when the next record is revealed in me? I can't. It's simple foolishness to describe to myself today a state that I'm not in yet. From what? Based on what am I saying it? And we can see that through all the states that we go through, there are ones that you could probably never plan. Not just not plan, imagine, expect, or assume that will be their next state. So I don't need to think those future states, those future desires, future thoughts. There's a reason why it's written as an ox to the burden and a donkey to the load in a very primitive manner. I want to reach more, and what is more? If I were to imagine something, it's not okay. Well, there wasn't really a question, but oh, I'm sorry. Yes, my question was simple. Prayer. When I pray, when I want something from the Creator, yes. To grow, to advance, to ask for deficiency, to ask for a vessel, to ask for anything that will help me advance on the path. So the prayer itself, yes. What is the most correct prayer? Is it actually the intention to get a deficiency? If it's the intention that comes from the purest, deepest place, is that enough? Is that the real prayer? Or do I need to paint the intention with words and say it in words? Does a prayer need to be in words? You know, the Creator doesn't see the body, so what words are you talking about that you need in prayer? Me words you maybe mean scrutinies of the desires of the intentions, but what are words? There's no words in spirituality. In spirituality, it's a naked feeling, without clothing, feelings, discernments, that are nameless. You can adhere to them any name or any number you want, just for it to be either acceptable by others, that's what you want to connect to them through or somehow. So towards the Creator you need to reach a certain combination, or how should we say it, altogether of discernments, feelings, thoughts, intentions. There's no words in this. You can call this the record of X of clothing and Y of coarseness. I don't know. And altogether, what is when the record is revealed? That's it. You can call it, well, we call it none of the righteous. It doesn't matter its names, but inside is a feeling. So the intention, the feeling is the intention. Each time I try to describe my intention in words, so I laugh at myself. Why do I even need the words? The intention reaches where it should. Yes, meaning prayer is a feeling in the heart. Heart is not called our heart, but rather all of a person's desires are called the heart. Hence, if all the desires all together, and within them there's a certain general feeling which is correct aimed truly to the Creator meaning to receive also, such a form like he has that is called, that it's aimed to him, that's called a prayer. Yes, the greatness of the Creator, that's the environment that will make me want to be his servant to enal form the environment that's called greatness of the Creator. The environment needs to bring forth any connection to me. There are many words here, my entire connection with the Creator. I'm asking specifically, I'm trying to define greatness of the Creator. The society needs to tell me that without the greatness of the Creator I will not reach the goal, that the greatness of the Creator opens the new vessel for me, that in short it needs to aim me to the Creator. What's greatness of the Creator? What is that term, the greatness of the Creator? One is that he rules me in every corner. Enter into yourself, any nook and cranny. You there is somewhere inside you. You'll find him. That the society needs to hint to you, imply to you, and then you'll find it. So, that when you see this, and you also hear this from the society, then you'll truly begin what is great. Great means stronger than me. That's the impression I need to receive from the society, that he is stronger than me, that he's greater than me. The fact that he gives me blows because he's stronger than me, then what? I'm going to curse him. Despair and fall, stronger meaning in greatness. Give me happiness, a good mood. Why? It can help you feel greatness of the Creator. The society should supply to me together with the importance of the Creator. Upliftment, importance of the Creator without uplifted spirits is not importance, meaning it needs to give you. And let's put it this way, in the place where the Creator's closed up, concealed, hidden, the society needs to do this role. In short, the Creator is concealed, and in its place, in his place, he gave you the society. Why? Because with him, you can't enter into contact if it's not in order to bestow. With the society, you can play however you want, but the real playing with the society can be also only in order to bestow, meaning you have in this world, in your egoistic state, the possibility to do spiritual work. So I know that in my egoistic state, if I take any society on the outside, I know how the society is built that give me a desire to belong to something or anal to something. It's a society that gives me a big show and tricks all my senses to tell me there's something good there. Then I don't care about myself. I'm only adhered to that good. But it's so deep into the will to receive it, so artificial. The question is, how do you change it in a place like here, that on one hand you need internal work of searching, but also to let a person uplift? Here is our problem in our society, is that we're not concerned with building a society. We need to start with that. If I want the society to bestow upon me, influence me, and for it to build me, then I need to be concerned with it being strong, with the right intention, in the right direction, drive in upliftment, and all that I want to receive from it should be in her, in it. And if it will be in the society, then I need to give to her, to it. Where can I give it from? I can give. Each can give. Each can give not for himself, but to some the other. Yes, you give lectures. You come to a lecture. They think what a righteous you are. Oh, you're so corrected. What? Why? Because you're influencing them. You're pouring upon them right and left what you read and what you didn't read. But I'm working on the alt to receive. Yes, you're working on their desire to receive. So you're bestowing upon them the upliftment that you don't have. Sometimes you're so messed up that you're even impressed by yourself and how I am. Yes, just like that. It's not just like that. But we'll talk about it once. But you see that no matter what your state is in, when you want to give the society, you can with your words, not from the heart only on the outside. You understand you can influence true upliftment to them. The second who hears thinks that it comes to him from the heavens. It's truly Elijah the prophet has just landed here. Do the same on purpose towards your society, and each should do this mutually towards one another. You can't imagine yourself what forces you will receive. You won't be able to sleep. You won't be able to sleep. It's like you maybe had several days like that when you got to know this idea of Kabbalah or something. There were some days like that also, let's say in the holiday, where what happens in Sukkot or in the upliftment kind of around the clock. you'll see that this is how you will live, and it will be you'll be obligated to do. So like it or not, they will influence you in such a way. The problem is that they don't want to influence you and they don't care about themselves yet. They don't yet understand that this is truly the main point, and that's it, and they let go. Let's say I take this state I can sleep. You feel that you're alive all the time. Everything's burning inside. You will feel that you're alive and burning every single moment. Why? And how is this happening to you? In what way? There's a society where everyone's sitting and everyone's hearing, and I'm also there sitting there and working hours, etc. You're hearing from the outside many times, and it's important, and it's special, and then you get ignited on this also from what else? The spirituality that either the spiritual forces that are in this, let them go for the moment. But how do I build this relation that as long as I'm alive I don't scrutinize? If you receive upliftments of society, you're saying it will prevent me from doing scrutinies. Why will this prevent me from doing scrutinies? My scrutinies are that I'm in a state that I'm messed up, and your state of being messed up, you should know that there are no scrutinies. You're just eating yourself up here. The scrutinies need to come from a state where the light comes and you see a gap between you and this light. The society will not disconnect you. It will not disconnect you altogether from scrutinies. Don't worry. Be constantly in maximal upliftment and you'll see. Don't worry, because the scrutinies will come. But if you fall to some thought or discernment, you'll fall for a second, and that will be enough. That's considered hastening time, shortening time. And for you, no, it's scrutinies where I sit down, for I fall for a few days and I can exit this, and then I understand what depth of a hole I fell into and what things I'm discovering in me and what a trash I am. No, we don't need that. Even for a second, if you didn't even feel in your feelings, it can go by you in a way that's spirituality. Maybe you will need it. I don't know and how and where it will accumulate this way. Don't ever be concerned about the bad. You need to always concerned with upliftment and with the thoughts of the Creator. That's where the scrutiny will come from. The light scrutinizes the vessel. And how do you keep that thin line between people that will be in society? Now not for the goal but be for the uplifting. I feel good with my will to receive in society. There could be people like that. I know where I teach. Wait. You're saying like this. They're in our society. There's people that come here because of the goal. And there are those who come because they don't want to sit at home. I come in the evening. I see. There's people sitting here. What are they doing? They're running away from home. At home, there's their wife and the children. They're screaming and all that. So they sit here and they do it like that. It could be that way. It could be that we're all like that, and we're really all like that. We're running away from our troubles. They're saying, are my society? They're not thinking about uplifted spirits. They're not thinking about spirituality. Correct. That they're not thinking. Accept it as a correct assumption. You are altogether running away from your troubles. What's the meaning of our life? That's what you came from, and that's what you're continuing with. If it seems to you that it's not correct, then it's a sign that you really didn't scrutinize the depth of the reason that you're here for. Each of us who's here in the end is running away from the bad, and that's very good. That's a respectable foundation to begin with. No, we need to be yearning for spirituality, bestow to altruism, to communism. Nonsense. We don't need to yearn for anything but to one thing, to flee our troubles. But let's say I go to a hotel. So I don't know, they constantly feel my desire. What's the difference between a group that helps me not think about my troubles and some hotel and that also offers me now a week of not thinking about my troubles? Yes, the difference is simple. If really these are purposeful troubles, and you won't be able to flee them, you'll sit in the hotel room with all that glory and you'll eat yourself up, and nothing will help you. And only here you will be able to run away from it. And it's very good if you flee them. It's very good if you came here and forget about all kinds of troubles, beastly ones, spiritual ones, doesn't matter which. And don't remember them. You don't need to think when the recognition of evil will come to you. It comes only as a consequence of the light. If you don't invite more light upon yourself, you won't discover more bad and more bad and more bad. And whoever wants to feel the bad before he invites the light simply sits eating himself up. It's not a revelation of new discernments. That's called the fool who sits, his hands folded over, and eats his own flesh. Sits, he's not advancing. We need, he writes in many articles, he writes, you only need to be connected to the source of the light, to the Creator. As a result of that, all the rest of the things will come to you. And don't be afraid that by that you're separating from your I or from your desire to receive. No, it's arranged in such a way. The method is arranged in such a way that the blows will come to you, and don't worry, and in what pace will come. All right, but in relation to building the organization factory and the relations within it, I'm saying this now, is that the essential thing here, it will happen, it'll happen. If it won't happen, nothing will happen. Let's share impressions from the lesson. What from it are we taking to implement in the 10? Wow, what a lesson filled with so much advice, so many things. But in the end, we heard those final sentences. Troubles come, they move us, they drive us to a certain action. We shouldn't try to analyze where and from what. And we read that only a society from the friends we receive the yearning for the greatness of the Creator, and that's the only thing we need to work on in the society. From that, all the rest of the things will come. We need to reach a true deficiency, a cry to the Creator, that He'll come and help us, and it has to come from an understanding and an awareness that we are not able to come out of the world to receive for ourselves, but only by the Creator's help. And we truly need to reach pain and suffering, that we're far from it, that we must have it, and the great need is only from the incorporation in the environment as much as possible, that we all have that same desire, and that's what we're demanding. Together, there's nothing greater than bestow, which is the most exalted, and actually the quality of the Creator, and all our actions are just driven from within it. It's what we aspire for, and the only expression for the importance of bestow is the way we relate to society, meaning to the extent in which I want, and I'm willing, like he writes, to annul myself in the society. To that extent we can measure the greatness of bestow and the greatness of the Creator in a person. And then the body begins to resist, and this creates a need and a request upon which the light comes that gives the importance of bestow, and accordingly it corrects the vessel. Our deficiency should be for greatness of the Creator. It'll turn us from a slave for the wall to receive, to a slave to the wall to bestow. Turns out that the deficiency has to be that we will be the most adhered to the Creator as possible. And the check, you can check it as much as I'm concerned on what's outside of me, from checking towards society to an increasing concern of the world, but a true way to check whether I'm coming out of myself and concerned on the Creator is as much as I'm concerned about society. Concern of society is concern about the Creator. The main thing for advancement is the greatness and importance of the Creator, which we receive from the environment, and our work in the environment is to broadcast this to one another. And the second thing is the exertion in the society, both in quantity and quality, through which I draw the light and receive the greatness of the Creator. So maybe to summarize it, that the article and the whole lesson was especially, I think, at least about the deficiency and the right deficiency, and that a person needs to be aware that he has to be in gratitude about this deficiency. He has to feel it, even to suffer that he's lacking that, and he has to scrutinize what exactly is he lacking, which is also the point that the deficiency itself isn't enough. It's part of his development, and the true deficiency in feeling and scrutinies come from illumination from above, the light, that from the deeds the light develops vessels to discern the beauty of the quality of bestow. And what do we want to attain in our work? Rob said, then you need to reach a certain combination towards the Creator of understandings, feelings, thoughts, intentions. There are no words in this raid. It doesn't matter what words, but inside it's a feeling. That's it. And we feel at enthusiasm now. The friends are simply radiating. Hello friends. Hello friends, we are in. We're very excited, me, and very happy to be here. What a special lesson we just heard from Raf. We want to start with a short part we heard in the lesson. Our work all together through all kinds of actions is to discover the next in-line record. That's it. I realized it. After that I continue. Discover the next in-line record. Higher and higher and higher. In this way I return to that same place from which my soul has descended. It truly connects to what we are going to read now in the study of Tensot. We are in the study of tens. We're in Volume 1, Part 1, Chapter 2. We're inside Item 1 of the words of the we'll read. In now and then we'll enter into Item 2, the inner light. So we'll start with Item 1, the words of the from. He extended a line into the space. Item 1. After the above restriction, there remained a place of space and vacant empty air in the very middle of that light of Insal. Then there was a place where the emanated beings and the created beings and the formed beings and the made beings could be. Then he extended one straight line from the light of from his circular light from above, downward, and it cascades and descends into that space. So now we're going to learn what the line is, inner light, from one direct line. So what we learned in the previous lesson was that explains that there are no changes in the light, no changes in the upper one. Everything is round and all the changes are only in the created being. So we'll read 2 quotes. You should know that all the innovations and cascading of these degrees are only about the inspiration of the vessel and the way it receives from the upper light, because that is what brings the changes. Another small quote about the restriction and departure of the light, only by the inspiration and reception of the vessel, meaning the middle point. Now, we'll start studying how in that circle, that everything is equal, and suddenly, well, not suddenly starts the line. What is the line? What is the circle? And how the line discerns the circle. We are reading from the study of the 10, Volume 1, the inner light. We're starting with the words. Now you can understand what they meant by the words. He extended one straight line from the light of It means at the place of the space itself, meaning the vessel that had been emptied of the light of it itself caused the extension of the line from because of the diminution that was innervated in the will to receive in it. The measure of its current reception after the restriction of its phase 4 is called line, meaning relating to its previous reception in phase 4 that filled the entire place. However, now that she does not have that great will to receive, but only the previous 3 phases of the desire, whose will to receive is weak, it is regarded as that vessel not receiving more of the light of ins, but only one line of light. The entire place of the vessel remains empty and vacant from light, because that minute light that she receives now is not enough to fill the entire place of the vessel. That happened because of the absence of phase 4, which she diminished. We see that the upper light was not at all stopped by the restriction and did not change at all so as to draw the light as one line. Instead, that whole great change happened because of the vessels of reception that were diminished and can now receive from the light of only a very small measure, called line, meaning according to the measure of her desire. This is because she does not want more than that measure, meaning you see as much as you can be in equivalence of form with the Creator, in a mutual relation between them, in love and giving on behalf of the created being. It's a line on behalf of the Creator, it's infinite, but on behalf of the created being it's a thin line in the middle of the space. A space is the Creator's relation towards him, an infinite relation, but a created being is only able to absorb that. What does this line symbolize? That actually the created being in that line doesn't reveal the right vessel, true deficiency, to be equal to the Creator. It's like a baby. He can't reveal as much as the giving is great, that it's infinite. It doesn't mean anything. He's not in it. If he must discover the true relation, he must discover a desire on his own behalf. He has to understand and attain it. He can't implement it on his own. He has to demand it, to ask for the upper light for it. Otherwise, he won't be adhered to the upper light. If it could implement it on its own and to reach that same form that same intensity, let's say, of giving on his own behalf towards the light. There are actions of essential actions in order to implement the thought of creation, the good, to do good to his created being on behalf of the Creator, and the same thought that was formulated in the created being as a cause for the first restriction, that the created being wanted to reach a state that he is exactly like the Creator. So to implement that thought to be as the Creator, that you need to work hard in a very long order of actions. A created being that is mal the middle point, that can only restrict itself, and with a screen that's revealed to draw a line, and in that line to create all the worlds that state you can still see as much as compared to that infinite circle. That's what we feel in this depiction. So the created being still doesn't work as a created being. It's all the components. There are still from the Creator. Why? Because we were saying that phase 4 felt itself that it wants to receive, and it restricts itself, that it supposedly distances itself completely from the light. The light departs from all the phases, and then she draws the light already after she's empty with the screen. She makes a beating upon it, and only afterwards the coupling. So why do we not say that the created being performs these actions, but it still supposedly comes on behalf of the Creator? Because the wall to receive of the created being, even though it was emptied, it was emptied because it received these qualities from the Creator, and it is still not. The lack of equivalence of form, or in contradiction to the Creator. There was still never such a thing. It was only revealed in the shattering, and after the shattering, that the world to receive completely distanced itself, till this world, and from there started growing itself, also until you reach a state that we have a choice, meaning the 4 phases, and then the world of the first restriction, and the screen, and the worlds of this world, and from it after our whole history, we start ascending until we reach the world of we still don't have freedom of choice. Only here is our true freedom of choice, and the created being starts resembling the Creator, being similar to him in he truly starts working with his own desires. And this whole turnaround till here is all a preparation, that in the receive still the right discernment wasn't revealed in order for it to work from within itself, because here there are 2 lines, that only in the middle he can build his self, and here what we learn the light of the screen, even though starts building the line in the world of Adam, and there's still a line that goes with the same good desires that come on behalf of the light. Yeah, little item 3 relates to from his circular light. We have already explained the meaning of the image of the circle. He tells us that even after the restriction, the upper light remained in form of a circle, meaning without discrimination of degrees. Its 4 phases are of equal merit, and the reason is in the above item that the upper light is not subject to innovation and change. These above kinds of innovations are only with respect to the vessels. Item 4, little item 4 relates to from above downward, and it cascades and descends into that space. Do not forget that we are not discussing, God forbid, corporeal terms whatsoever. Instead, the more refined is called higher and the coarser is called lower. Anything that can be perceived as expansion of light from the emanator and its coming into the state of an emanated being is regarded primarily as innovation of the disparity of form that exists in the emanated being. In other words, it refers to the will to receive that does not exist in the emanator and was innovated in him. Because of this, the emanated being is regarded as far coarse, low and inferior to the emanator, since the disparity of form from the emanator does all that, and moves him from the phase of the emanator to the phase of the emanated being. You should also know that that disparity of form, namely the will to receive, is not revealed at once, but forms gradually. Over 4 phases its form is completed only in phase 4. It therefore turns out that the more the form of its will to receive is weak, meaning the first phase of the 4 phases, the closer it is to the emanator, and it is more important, more refined, and higher, since the disparity of form in her is not as great as in the 3 subsequent phases. Phase 2, whose desire is greater than in phase 1, is regarded as farther from the emanator, coarser, lower, and inferior to the first phase. Finally, phase 4 is the farthest from the emanator, lower, coarser, and inferior to all of them. That is why the writes that the line is extended from above downward, meaning from the first phase to the fourth phase, which is the lowest. The matter of above and below was innervated with the emergence of the line. Because the line shown meaning during the restriction, there was no discernment of up or down there. However, after she received the light mulia as a line, meaning she did not receive it in all 4 phases, but only in her first 3 phases. Phase 4 remained dark without light. Only now was phase 4 revealed as low, coarse, and inferior, and that the 3 preceding phases are set up on it according to their refinement and proximity to the emanator. However, during the restriction, when the light left all 4 phases at once, that discernment among the degrees had not yet occurred. So what does he want to say? I'll say may be different. What phase 4 discovers from the 4 phases of direct light, she discovers herself, only herself. Now by all the development she has in the worlds, she discovers herself compared to the previous phases. From them in the previous phases, they are called the first 9 spur. So from them, she receives the desire to bestow. She then makes that desire to bestow as her own will to receive. By this phase 4, raises itself and becomes like this whole big circle. Then from that she starts correcting herself, meaning phase 4 from a point. Better not like this, she's the center. Point phase 4 she connects to the first 9 spur. Then she rises upon them. By the shattering of the vessels, she can acquire from these first 9. She wants to be a bestower like they are. Then she receives from them a desire to receive from them. That is in the shattering. Then she becomes bigger like the light. One against the other is what the Creator created big in her corrupted desire like the light, meaning she starts after the shattering to be big like this whole circle. She includes the first 9 field in her, so then this is called the shell. And then she starts correcting herself. When she's so big, when she corrects herself gradually, she brings herself to a state that in this whole area, the light is in control from the control of phase 4 from the will to receive that lets the light be in control, or in other words, she receives the qualities of the light, the quality of bestow upon the will to receive in her. So and the correction, meaning what I want to say phase 4, that we are talking about, and all of our expansion as we said here until the freedom of choice is all called that. It came from above. It was still not talking about a created being. The created being is a state that starts correcting itself after the systems of holiness and discover himself as in control, want to control this whole circle. If phase 4 feels itself only, so there's only nephesh when she acquires this. So she has that enter inside in a shattered manner, and then in the correction she reaches well obviously a different, because this is of, and here it's of. Oh, there aren't really words for this. Still, I'm not so concentrated. Well, keep going. Item 2. The words of the beginning of the line touches, not its end. The upper beginning of the line is extended from himself and touches it, but the end of that line down at its end does not touch the light of. Again, item 2. The upper beginning of the line is extended from and so himself and touches it, but the end of that line down at its end does not touch the light of and so. Little item 5. Inner light relates to the upper beginning of the line is extended from himself, meaning the first phase of the 4 phases. Item 6 relates to and touches it. Phase 1 being the upper is the closest to ins, meaning to the emanator. For this reason, it is regarded as touching him, since the disparity of form in phase 1 is not apparent enough to separate it from the emanator. Item 7. Because even though she has a desire and the will to receive that she discovered, so it came directly from the light that discovered that she was created in such a way. The light created her as opposite of him, existence from absence. But even though it's opposite, this opposite is still not on its own account. It's not, or it's not that I am intending and wanting, like we learn in can intend or not intend, or can't but intends. Meaning in these forms, the shell that can separate from the pleasure but doesn't intend to do that. There still isn't such a form in phase 4. Even here, what we're speaking about, there still isn't a true keeper, and that's why, even though it's revealed that it's opposite, but because of its own nature, that can't still ascribe it to itself. That's why we say that even though there was a restriction, but before the restriction, that it discovered that it is opposite, nothing was harmed by it. Because the created being who discovered it suddenly discovers it. From the Creator, there was a perfect state, but what is revealed it's all towards the created being, and also when the created being discovers it, so right away with that revelation, he performs this action of distance restriction. That's why there was still, on behalf of the created being, no desire that's against the Creator from his own behalf. That's why it's all in holiness, even though the restrictions and distance and the departure of the light, but it's still all in holiness, because it was revealed from the wholeness. Little item 7 relates down at its end does not touch the light of Insel. Down at its end implies to phase 4, the farthest and lowest of them all. Now she does not receive the upper light, and is therefore regarded as not touching the light of Ins, but is separated from it. Keep going, meaning he gives us definitions above. Below it's all according to the line, that if there's a relation from the created being to the Creator, so the created being determines all the definitions. Now but in there are no definitions cause everything's equal place. So we want to immediately go to our lesson here with all the friends from the world clay. We have a question for the General Assembly. While the impression still works in us, we heard Rob saying that phase 4 takes the desire to bestow of the first line and makes it her desire to receive, and by that raises herself and becomes like that whole big circle, and then from that she begins to correct herself. We want to ask the friends also in the world's clay, put your question marks up so that we can get your ability to speak as well. I want to say that why this whole process is only here where she starts correcting herself. Yeah, we want to try a new form. Each one just raises his hand and says what their answer is again. So we heard about saying that in phase 4, right? He drew it. Phase 4, take the will to receive of the first 9, right? Then turns it into her own will to receive. And by this she raises herself and becomes like that big circle, right? You saw it, remember? From that big circle, and then from that, she starts correcting herself. So why? Only after she made herself this big circle, she can start correcting herself. Only then. Who thinks they know? The upper light expanded in a circular way in the beginning, and after phase 4, discovered herself. The line that expanded in her was discernments from above and down. And this is not like the upper light. So, she needs to correct it so that the expansion will be in a circular way like in the upper life. More, in the first lesson, if there's not an opposing face that created being can't identify. So Rob said in the last paragraph there, what you read there, created being is a state which begins to correct himself after there are systems, and feels himself, and he continues, I think that's enough. Nice 17. Whatever started saying he feels himself, the gap between him and the first line, and then he comes to the same decision. Please, because she went through the shattering, and she mixed with the vessels of reception and vessels of bestow, so then she can perform that. No, correct. That's what I was missing. Right. All the answers are, I from my 10 told me the answer. Well, we have Ara. I think he writes in the beginning where we started reading that even the void itself in the vessel that empties from the light of himself caused the extension of the light from himself because of the innovation of the new desire. He really received this deficiency to the desire to receive his actual being emptied. The light brought him this equivalence of how he really wants to be like him. Florida. Ken, because the rush modes inside the desire. Remember that greater attention with the light, and it yearns for that state as last ones. Let's hear about the 3. Please, I understood it. Such that the stage in which phase 4 needs to get to know the qualities in her and Mala in relation to the first 9 needs to be incorporated with everyone in order to get to know her own qualities. And then she already has free choice, and she can grow and build and create this whole circle. Correct. We are very inspired by the gathering in Copenhagen. Can we see them, please? Where are the friends? Here. Way to go, guys. Sending you a lot of forces. Thank you. Let's read a few more answers. In answer 33. Question 33. So we're going to read the question. 32. What is from above downward? Says meaning from phase 1 to phase 4. Phase 4 that was left without light is regarded as being below all the degrees. The weaker the will to receive. The higher one is considered to be the weaker the will to receive it. Considered to be higher. Therefore phase 1 is regarded as the highest of all. Another question. 38. What is touching? Because it was written that it touches above and doesn't touch below. So, what is touching? If the disparity of form of the degree from the root is not so apparent as to separate it from the root, it is regarded as touching the root. The same applies between each two adjacent degrees. Let's hear questions now. From the lesson that we just saw, we were in what rights we'll be happy to hear. Yes, drew that the freedom of choice starts from that's where a person starts, building himself on the middle line. So, what happened till then? What is a person's freedom of choice till then? Does he have choice? So I say that free choice starts from that point, and until then it's all that is awakening are the qualities that the Creator prepared in the creative being, meaning also this world until that line that he drew there at 2 is not yet considered that one has choice because we don't have those two opposites like said we don't have the upon which he can develop the correction, and only if with those two lines only from that line upwards he can truly develop himself in two lines that are opposite to one another. So before that a person doesn't have freedom of choice only from the world of look. The work on 3 lines starts from the world of remember. We learned that in the world of it's all light enters light, exits right in. Then we learned in the world of we already have 2 lines. There's 2 parts. There's and the H, and in there's really 3 parts. And here we have the right line, left line, and the middle line. Here the true work of a person starts. There's no Adam yet where we are. There's no Adam yet, but Ro's already kind of explaining of what will be afterwards, that an Adam needs to crash completely come down to this world, and then in this world when he's disconnected from everything here starts to work against the kibot and the shells. And there we have the worlds of in relation to these. We have woman. Hello everybody. I have a question about the world of it at the world of I. Always thought that it's already the end of correction, and here he's saying that only we start becoming created beings. But is that right, that it's the end of correction? So what shells could even be there? Because here we're speaking about shells of holiness, so holiness is clear, but what shells can there be in it? That's not clear. Both are correct. The final correction is in the world of, because the world of corrects all that has been shattered and has fallen to the world of that's what we just learned. But it's so, that is correct. On the other hand, everything is corrected in the world. All the worlds rise to the world of, and that's where they receive their correction. And the Adam we was created in the world of absolute, above the world of absolute before we started to be in the world there is no Adam yet. Continuing Dai's question, we learn that we have choice still in society. So first of all, what stage are we compared to this? During the question of beginners, each according to what he attends. So person that comes to study, he's after all these stages we depicted. That's why he has an ability to choose. Or it's a different layer even. On our layer we're talking about having the ability to choose an environment in order to, we also heard in the lesson, in order to receive the greatness of the Creator, the importance of the goal. That's still not the choice that he's talking about, that Rav talked about in the lesson. In the test lesson where there's the shells and the 3 lines like we just said, we are talking about choice in an environment that will be the first step. That is not in the desire to receive. That's against the desire to receive. That's not yet corrections, etc. We don't have. I read again the quote from the our work is by all kinds of deeds to discover the next record in line. The record has to be revealed. The next record in line, that's it. Once I've implemented it, I keep going, or I discover the next record, which is higher and higher. And in this way I can return to the same place where the soul came down from. So these records that are revealed, they lead me until I reach that place where my soul came down from. So we learn how the roots of our souls are in the world of Abby. Just for the order, is there a difference between the choice that he explained and free choice that he explained in relation to the concept that we use when we say a person chooses the environment? Is it different? It's not the same. Here he's speaking about choosing between keeper and holiness, and it's also not really choice, because still, how did he say it only for one moment? You remember he said it in the first lesson, for a moment you just fall into the and then into holiness. It has to be, but how long will you remain in the keeper? A second or a month or a year? You have a way to influence it, and who takes care who takes you out of there? You have to answer it. The society. What does it mean that the line comes out of the screen? Where is it? Can you read the? We heard saying phase 4 restricts herself, and from the screen she draws a line, and in that line she creates all the worlds. What is that line that creates all the world from the screen? Correct. You have a circle of phase 4, the world in which is filled with light, filled. It has no end. It has no head. Ra said he doesn't even have it's a clee filled with light. And now the clee felt shame. It was emptied from the light. There's no light in it. Now how does it fill it? You understand that? Now the created being is in a state that's not good. On one hand, if it won't receive light, it's against the purpose of creation, because the purpose of creation is for him to enjoy. On the other hand, if he receives the light, where will he receive it? He has no possibility. It will be in order to receive. So, not to this, and not to that, he can't do. So, what does he do? He creates a screen. The screen enables him to receive in order to bestow. That's called a screen. So now his desire, he wrote several times, diminished it very greatly upon this very diminished desire. What can he receive? How much force of a screen does he have in relation to this whole circle? It's a thin line. They say that Galar is altogether, although it's the biggest desire ever, it's still a thin line that enters into this empty void, and then gradually with more parts of more worlds. We need to fill this entire space. More question about the phases. Why did determine that the distance from the emanator is according to the will to receive that is in every phase, and not according to the quality that the phase is creating? What does that mean? Let's say phase 4, supposed to bestow more than phase 1 or 2. It has a quality of best that's more developed, but says the opposite, that let's say phase 4 that is closer because the will to receive is smaller. So, no, but by your calculation phase 4 was not supposed to do a restriction, but before the restriction she was in maximum bestow. She received everything in order to bestow. Did she receive, or she think that where she is? She thought so. According to what is that calculation, the difference of the calculation of she thought and what was in practice? What's the difference between them? He says we can read it again. He says that as much as the will to receive is weaker, right? He says weaker, not the will to bestow, the will to receive, the weaker it is. That way the vessel is closer to the emanator. In phase 1 we're not speaking about the root. Root is just the light. So in phase 1, what Walter received, she doesn't even feel it. She's like a baby, or we relate it to the still degree. Everything is just under the light. So the will to receive is very small there. The more the desire to receive is bigger. Phase 4 is the biggest desire compared to phase 1. So that way the vessel's this more far away than the will to bestow, because it's opposite. It's the will to receive, the will to bestow on. Want to bestow, so he is opposite. That's why it's felt bigger, or I mean distant. Clear? But what's the meaning of the qualities of bestow? I don't know what you mean by qualities of bestow. Phase 2, let's say, expresses the desire to bestow to be like the creator. Phase 3, even more, she wants to receive in order to bestow, meaning these are qualities of bestow. Oh, yeah. But you remember that also phase 2 comes upon phase 1, meaning it's an addition. It's not that she's suddenly something new. That's why she adds to phase 1, and after the restriction, she's considered further away from the emanator. She doesn't have a way to come closer. She's always an addition of the will to receive on the first phase 1, and phase 3 is upon phase 2. That's upon phase 1, meaning may always add another layer and another layer of a desire that distances them from the emanator, even though it's a desire for the benefit of the sea of the emanator. Yeah, because they are built on one another. Okay, I need to think about that. Maybe women's pain. Thank you, friends. How does phase 4, who's the most distant from the creator? How can she reach equivalence of form with the creator? Love said that even the created being that restricts itself and some oppositeness is revealed. It's also not really an oppositeness. He just discovers the quality that the creator gave in advance in the created being. Aware, yes. He starts to go through all the worlds and then the shattering, and after that to incorporate what the first 9 only, then it reaches the magnitude of all the world of the will to receive, reaches the world of and only, then can start the correction from above downward, and before it's only revealed, only the state is revealed that came from the creator and can't even ascribe it to herself. Phase 4. In continuation, we heard from Rab that it says that phase 4 is not differentiated from the light, but then we also read a definition that touching not touching, where there he writes that Shu is separated from the light, so it's not exactly clear that question always repeats itself. Phase 4, is she distinguished from the light? That's why she does a restriction, or she not differentiated, and then she does a restriction for another reason. When she restricts herself, she is separated, because I've said that the 4 phases of direct light is the way the light bestows the vessel doesn't understand or wants to do anything. It keeps changing according to the influence of the light, because he builds his relation to the light. That's why it's called 4 phases of direct light. Again, we keep repeating the same thing. You should have called it the development of the vessel, right? No. But it's 4 phases of direct light, until phase 4 was created, that was also built under the influence of the light. And then phase 4 decides that it doesn't want to receive. That's called a world of restriction. And it's emptied, and it fills itself in little portions. What does it mean that myself is built from the middle? Because on one hand we have in self, and the other end is the darkness. That's what it means that once you start working with those 2 ends, we start discovering the I, the self, that is making the correction and reaching the purpose of creation.